"Take your hands off my daughter." Ethan Walker's voice was low, but it stopped every conversation in the courthouse hallway. A social worker stood beside 8-year-old Lily, one hand resting near the child's shoulder, while a county officer held a folded custody order against his chest. "Mr. Walker, step aside. She's 8 years old. You lost custody this morning." "I lost a hearing," Ethan said, kneeling beside his daughter. "I did not stop being her father." Lily's fingers tightened around the sleeve of his faded work coat. The hallway smelled of floor polish and burnt coffee, and somewhere behind the closed courtroom doors, an old wall clock clicked toward an hour neither of them was ready to face. Ethan gently straightened the blue scarf around Lily's neck, the one her mother had knitted before she died. "Daddy," Lily whispered, "did I do something wrong?" For one painful second, Ethan could not answer. He had spent 4 years learning how to pack lunches, braid uneven ponytails, work overnight shifts, and smile when bills waited unopened beneath the cereal box. But no one had taught him how to explain why strangers with clean suits and careful voices believed poverty made a man unfit to love his child. "No, sweetheart," he said at last. "None of this is your fault." Before this story continues, take one quiet moment to subscribe to the channel, because stories about dignity, second chances, and ordinary people who refuse to abandon the truth deserve a place where they can be heard. The officer unfolded the order. "Temporary placement begins today. Your daughter will remain with her aunt until the court completes its review." "Her aunt lives 900 miles away," Ethan said. "That transfer has already been approved. You cannot send her across the country. You have 72 hours to submit new evidence. 3 days. 3 nights. One final chance to prove that every report written about him was wrong." Lily pressed her face against his shoulder. Ethan closed his eyes, breathing in the faint scent of strawberry shampoo and winter air. He wanted to promise that no one would take her. He wanted to tell her good fathers always won. But dignity was not the same as pretending, and love did not become stronger by lying. "Listen to me," he whispered. "Wherever they take you, I will come for you. I will not disappear." Footsteps sounded at the far end of the hallway. Slow. Measured. Expensive heels against marble. Ethan looked up and saw Claire Bennett standing beneath the tall courthouse windows, wearing a charcoal coat over a dark business suit. The CEO who had promised to tell the truth had finally arrived. Lily turned toward her, hope rising instantly in her eyes. "Miss Claire," she called. Claire stopped. Her face was pale, and she carried no attorney, no assistant, no company security. Only a leather folder held tightly against her side. Ethan stood. "You promised you would tell them what happened." Claire's lips parted, but no words came. The social worker handed Ethan a copy of the custody order. He looked down at the final page, searching for the name of the person who had verified the company's accusations against him. The hallway seemed to narrow. The clock stopped sounding distant. There, beneath the statement that called him dishonest, unstable, and unfit to raise his daughter, was a signature he recognized. Claire Bennett. 3 months earlier, the first snow of December had turned the streets of Columbus, Ohio, into pale ribbons beneath the hospital lights. Ethan Walker was halfway through his overnight maintenance shift when the emergency alarm sounded from the East Wing elevator. "Car 4 is stalled between floors. How many people inside?" "2. 1 adult and 1 child." Ethan set down his coffee without taking a sip. The fluorescent lights hummed above him, the scent of machine oil clinging to his work jacket as he crossed the service corridor with his toolbox in one hand and a radio in the other. Inside the stalled elevator, Claire Bennett stood beside a frightened boy of about 7 whose breathing had become fast and shallow. She had been on her way to a private board meeting, dressed in a charcoal coat and polished shoes, carrying a leather folder filled with numbers worth more than Ethan would earn in a lifetime. None of that mattered when the boy looked up at her and whispered, "I cannot breathe." Claire pressed the emergency button again. "Help is coming." "How do you know?" "Because someone always comes." Her voice was steady, but her hand trembled against the metal rail. Then Ethan's voice came through the speaker. "My name is Ethan. I am right outside the car." "The boy is having trouble breathing," Claire said. "His rescue inhaler is in his backpack, but he is panicking." Put me on speaker and let him hear me. Claire crouched beside the child. Ethan spoke slowly, asking the boy to count the ceiling lights, then the buttons, then the breaths between each number. His tone carried no fear, no impatience, only the quiet confidence of a man who understood that calm could be a kind of shelter. Behind the elevator wall, Ethan opened the service panel and found the control board flickering in an irregular pattern. The backup relay had failed to engage. He had reported that same fault twice in the previous month. Both reports had been marked resolved. "Can you get us out?" Claire asked. "Yes." "How long?" "Long enough to do it safely." Metal clicked softly beyond the wall. The elevator shifted less than an inch, then settled. Ethan reset the relay manually and guided the car level with the nearest floor. When the doors finally opened, cold hallway air moved into the cabin like a held breath being released. A nurse hurried forward and checked the boy while Claire stepped out, still clutching her folder. She looked at Ethan's faded name badge. "You kept him calm. He did the hard part. You repaired the elevator." Ethan glanced back at the exposed panel. "I got it moving." "That is not the same as fixing the problem." Claire studied him more carefully. Most employees became nervous when they recognized her. Ethan did not seem to know who she was. "What problem?" she asked. "The backup relay should have engaged automatically. It did not." "Has that happened before?" "Not with passengers inside." "Not yet." He opened his toolbox and removed a folded copy of his maintenance report. "I sent this upstairs twice." Claire read the first page, and something in her expression changed. The manufacturer listed at the top was Bennett Medical Systems. Her company. Her signature appeared on the compliance notice attached to the equipment contract. "Why was this marked resolved?" she asked. "That is a question for someone above my pay grade." Ethan closed the panel and stood. "But if nobody asks it now, the next person trapped inside may not be lucky." Claire reached into her coat for a business card. "I would like to compensate you for what you did tonight." Ethan shook his head. "Keep your money. Then tell me what you want." He looked toward the child being led safely down the hall. "I want you to make sure that elevator does not fail again." Claire glanced at the name printed on his badge, then at the report in her hand. For the first time that night, Ethan noticed her full name embossed on the leather folder. Claire Bennett, Chief Executive Officer. He did not straighten his posture. He did not apologize. He only picked up his cold coffee and said, "Now you know where to start." By the following Monday, Ethan's report had disappeared from the hospital maintenance system. He searched the database twice, then a third time, using the report number he had written on the back of an old grocery receipt. Nothing. No warning. No inspection request. No record that he had ever raised a concern. Maybe the system archived it, his supervisor, Martin Hale, said without meeting his eyes. Safety reports do not archive themselves. Let it go, Ethan. A child was trapped in that elevator. And the child walked away. The boiler room was warm and smelled of dust, hot metal, and aging insulation. Pipes trembled softly overhead while Martin folded his arms, looking less like a supervisor and more like a man guarding a locked door. Ethan placed a printed copy of the report on the desk. "This relay can fail again. You are a maintenance technician, not an engineer. I know what a dead circuit looks like. Then know when to stop talking." Ethan did not raise his voice. He did not threaten anyone. He simply left the report on the desk and returned to work, because quiet dignity was not surrender, and patience was not permission to bury the truth. 2 days later, Lily's school called during his shift. She had experienced a breathing episode after recess, and the nurse needed a parent present. Ethan reached for his phone, but the emergency lights above the intensive care corridor flashed red. A power transfer unit had stopped responding, leaving several rooms dependent on limited backup electricity. "Walker, we need you downstairs," Martin shouted through the radio. "My daughter's school is calling." "Then call them back after you stabilize the unit." Ethan looked at Lily's name glowing on the screen. Then he looked toward the nurses moving quickly beneath the dimmed hallway lights. "Tell the school I am coming," he said into the phone. "I need 10 minutes." It took 27. By the time Ethan arrived at Maple Ridge Elementary, Vanessa Cole was already sitting beside Lily in the nurse's office. Vanessa was the older sister of Ethan's late wife, a successful real estate attorney with a large home in Denver and strong opinions about how children should be raised. "You were supposed to be here," she said. "I came as fast as I could. She needed you. People at the hospital needed me too." Vanessa's expression hardened. "That answer may satisfy you. It does not satisfy me." Lily sat between them, holding her inhaler with both hands. Ethan crouched and checked her face, her breathing, and the color in her cheeks. "Are you all right, Peanut?" "I am okay now. I am sorry I was late." Lily leaned toward him. "You always come." Vanessa looked away, but the words followed her. The next morning, Ethan was called into a conference room at the hospital. Martin sat beside a human resources director and a man Ethan had never seen before. On the table lay 3 documents, a disciplinary notice, a termination letter, and a report claiming Ethan had abandoned his assigned post during a critical incident. "That is false," Ethan said. "Your employment ends today." The backup unit failed because the same software defect I reported was never corrected. The stranger closed the folder. "There is no record of such a report." Ethan felt the room become very still. 3 hours later, he returned home carrying his tools in a cardboard box. A certified envelope waited beneath his apartment door. Vanessa had filed for temporary guardianship of Lily, citing unstable employment, unpaid medical bills, and repeated parental absence. Attached was a statement from Bennett Medical Systems declaring that Ethan had fabricated safety concerns after being dismissed for negligence. At the bottom of the page was a blank line awaiting executive verification. Ethan stared at it until the paper trembled in his hand. Then his telephone rang. Claire Bennett's name appeared on the screen, and for the first time since meeting her, Ethan did not answer. Claire called 3 times before Ethan finally answered. "What do you want?" "To explain. Your company called me a liar." "I know. Your company helped my sister-in-law file for custody." "I know that too." The silence between them carried more weight than anger. Ethan stood in the narrow kitchen of his apartment while Lily colored at the table beneath a flickering light. Outside, snow tapped against the window, soft and steady, covering the parking lot in white. "Meet me tomorrow," Claire said. "No lawyers. No assistants. Just me." Ethan looked at the envelope beside the sink. "Why should I trust you?" "You should not." "Not yet." The next afternoon, they met at a small diner near the hospital, the kind with cracked red booths, endless coffee, and a bell that rang every time the door opened. Claire arrived without a driver, wearing a plain navy coat and carrying the leather folder Ethan remembered from the elevator. She sat across from him and placed several printed emails on the table. "Your report was deleted after it reached regional compliance," she said. "The order came from Daniel Mercer, our vice president of operations. And the statement about me. Prepared by corporate counsel. Signed by you." Claire did not answer immediately. The coffee machine hissed behind the counter. A spoon struck ceramic. Somewhere near the kitchen, a radio played an old country song too softly to understand. "Not yet," she said. Ethan leaned back. "That is not an answer. The board is demanding my signature." "Then refuse." "If I refuse without proof, they remove me before I can access the rest of the records." Ethan studied her face. "So I am supposed to lose my daughter while you protect your position?" "No." Her voice sharpened, then softened. "You are supposed to let me finish what I started. My daughter is not a business problem, Claire." "I know. Do you?" He pushed the emails back toward her. "Because men in conference rooms are deciding whether I deserve to raise her, and every one of them is being paid by your company." Claire lowered her eyes. For years, she had believed control was the same as strength. She had negotiated mergers, closed hospitals, and dismissed executives without allowing her hands to shake. But sitting across from Ethan, she understood that power looked different when a child's future was attached to it. "I will testify," she said. "Under oath." "Under oath. Even if your father tells you not to." Claire looked up. "Especially then." That evening, Ethan returned home to find Lily sitting on the floor with a cardboard house she had made from an empty cereal box. She had drawn 2 windows, 1 blue door, and 3 figures standing beneath a crooked sun. "Who is that?" Ethan asked, pointing to the 3rd figure. Lily smiled. "Miss Claire." Ethan's hand paused above the drawing. "Why is she there?" "Because she looked lonely at the hospital." Children often noticed what adults spent years learning to hide. Ethan sat beside her, and Lily handed him a yellow crayon. "Can she come for dinner sometime?" Before he could answer, someone knocked. Claire stood outside holding a paper grocery bag. "I brought soup," she said. Ethan's attorney whispered, "We need to request a recess." Ethan shook his head. He wanted to hear all of it. He wanted every promise broken in the open, where no one could pretend it had been misunderstood. The opposing attorney placed another document before Claire. "In your professional judgment, was Mr. Walker a reliable employee?" Claire stared at the page. "The report states that he was not." "That was not my question." The courtroom became very still. Claire's eyes lifted toward Ethan again, but he no longer searched them for an explanation. "Based on the official record," she said, "no." The judge called a recess 20 minutes later. In the hallway, a social worker informed Ethan that Lily would remain with Vanessa pending further review. Claire approached him near the courthouse windows. "Ethan, please listen. You said you would testify." "I did." "You said you would tell the truth." "I told them what the documents said." "That is not the same thing." Claire lowered her voice. "I need more time. My daughter does not have more time. There are things you do not understand." Ethan turned toward her, his face calm in a way that hurt more than shouting ever could. "You came into my home. You sat at my table. You let my daughter trust you. I am trying to protect her." "From what?" Claire could not answer. Richard Bennett appeared at the far end of the hallway, speaking quietly with corporate counsel. Ethan followed Claire's glance and understood enough. "You chose them," he said. "No." "Then why does it feel like you handed them my child?" Lily stepped out of the private room beside the advocate. The moment she saw Claire, hope brightened her face. "Miss Claire, did you fix it?" Claire's composure broke for half a second. "Not yet, sweetheart." Lily looked at Ethan. "Why not?" Ethan knelt and took both of her hands. "Because sometimes the truth takes longer than it should." The social worker called Lily's name. Ethan hugged her, then stood as she walked away with Vanessa. Claire moved closer. "Please trust me." Ethan looked at her without anger, only disappointment. "You did not just break your promise. You taught my daughter not to trust one." He left before Claire could respond. In the parking garage, Claire entered her car, locked the doors, and opened her leather folder. Hidden beneath the signed report was a small digital recorder. A red light blinked steadily. Every threat, every instruction, and every plan spoken by the board had been captured. Ethan had 72 hours, no job, and no reason left to believe anyone with power would help him. By sunrise, he was standing outside the hospital service entrance with a cardboard box of old maintenance logs pressed against his chest. Snow had hardened along the curb, and the wind moved between the buildings with a low whistle. A security guard shook his head. "Your access was revoked." "I am not asking for access." "Then what are you asking for?" "The truth." The guard looked at the box, then at Ethan's tired face. "Truth does not usually come through this door." "Neither do I anymore." Ethan left without arguing. He drove to a 24-hour diner where Marlene Price, a night shift nurse with 30 years at the hospital, waited in a corner booth beside 2 cups of coffee. "I saw what happened that night," she said. "You stayed because the backup unit failed. Will you say that in court?" Marlene looked toward the frosted window. "If I do, they may fire me." Ethan nodded. "Then do not. You would lose your daughter. I will not ask someone else to lose everything for me." Marlene studied him for a long moment. "That is exactly why I am going to help." They spent the morning reconstructing the emergency from handwritten notes, patient transfer records, and a printed staffing sheet Marlene had kept in her locker. At noon, a respiratory therapist named Caleb Rhodes joined them. By 2 o'clock, They had 3 witnesses and proof that Ethan had remained on duty during the power failure. What they did not have was the deleted safety report. Across town, Claire entered the Bennett Medical Systems boardroom carrying the recorder inside her leather folder. 12 executives sat beneath recessed lights, their faces reflected in the dark glass table. Richard Bennett occupied the chair at the far end. "You embarrassed this company in court," he said. "I followed the strategy you approved. You hesitated. I signed the report. And now you will surrender every copy of the internal recordings." Claire stopped. "What recordings?" Richard's expression did not change. "Do not insult me." Daniel Mercer leaned forward. "Your building access has been suspended. Your executive credentials are terminated effective immediately. You cannot remove the chief executive officer without a vote. We already voted." One by one, the directors avoided her eyes. Claire understood then that the meeting was not a negotiation. It was an execution carried out with polished language and clean hands. Richard slid a document toward her. "Sign this. Return the recorder. End all contact with Ethan Walker. Your position will be restored after the merger closes." Claire read the final line. It required her to deny any knowledge of deleted safety reports. "And Lily's medical coverage. Reinstated immediately. You are bargaining with a child's health. I am giving you a way to protect her." Claire looked at the men and women around the table. None appeared ashamed. Power had taught them to rename cruelty as procedure. "Did you ever love anything you could not own?" she asked. Richard's jaw tightened. "This is not the time for sentiment." "No," Claire said. "It is the first time sentiment has mattered." She left the document unsigned. That evening, Ethan met Vanessa outside her Denver hotel, where she had brought Lily during the temporary placement. Vanessa crossed her arms when she saw him. "You are not supposed to be here without approval. I am not asking to see Lily." "Then why did you come?" Ethan handed her copies of the hospital records. "Because you deserve to know they lied to you too." Vanessa read the first page, then the second. Her certainty began to weaken. "They told me you abandoned your shift. I stayed to keep the intensive care unit running. They said you invented the equipment problem. I reported it twice." Vanessa lowered the papers. "Why did nobody tell me?" "Because fear works better when people only hear one version." Through the hotel window behind her, Lily appeared in the lobby holding the cardboard house she had made. She saw Ethan and pressed one hand to the glass. He raised his hand but did not enter. Vanessa turned and saw the child's face. Something inside her changed. "The next hearing is in 2 days," she said quietly. "Then help me make sure the judge hears everything." At that same moment, Claire sat alone in her dark office for the last time, copying the recorder files onto 3 separate drives. Her company telephone stopped working. Her access badge flashed red. Then an email appeared on her personal account from Richard. "Return the evidence by midnight, and everything can still be yours." Claire removed the executive badge from her coat and placed it on the desk. For the first time in her life, she understood that losing power and losing herself were not the same thing. The settlement offer arrived the next morning in a white envelope without a return address. Ethan opened it at the diner while Marlene and Caleb reviewed witness statements across from him. The language was careful, polished, almost kind. Lily would receive full medical coverage, private schooling, and a permanent home with Vanessa. In exchange, Ethan would withdraw his objections, surrender parental rights, and sign a statement admitting that financial instability made him unable to provide proper care. "They are offering everything she needs," Caleb said quietly. "No," Ethan replied. "They are offering everything money can name." He read the final page again. A signature line waited beneath the words "voluntary relinquishment." The pen beside his coffee cup felt heavier than any tool he had ever carried. Marlene watched him. "What are you thinking?" "That maybe loving her means letting her have more than I can give." "Does Lily believe that?" Ethan looked toward the window. Snow moved across the parking lot in thin white sheets, erasing tire marks almost as soon as they appeared. Children should not have to choose between security and a parent. "Then do not make the choice for her." That afternoon, Vanessa allowed Ethan 10 minutes with Lily in the hotel lobby while the child advocate observed from a nearby chair. Lily ran to him but stopped before reaching his arms, as though someone had taught her that love now required permission. Ethan knelt. "If you testify, the company will terminate Lily Walker's medical coverage by morning." No one moved. No one whispered. Even the old clock above the judge's bench seemed too loud. The second recording named the executives who had erased Ethan's report. The third described the plan to use his dismissal in the custody case. The judge removed her glasses. "Ms. Bennett, do you understand the legal and financial consequences of submitting these files?" "Yes, Your Honor." Richard stepped forward. "The moment she does this, she loses her position, her shares, and every claim to the Bennett estate." Claire placed her badge beside the recorder. "Then let the record show that I understand the price." She opened the final document. "I have also transferred my controlling shares into an independent patient safety trust. Neither my father nor the current board can use the company to retaliate against Ethan or his daughter again." Richard's face went still. "You are giving away everything." Claire looked toward Ethan, then toward the closed door behind which Lily waited. "No. I am giving up the things that taught me to mistake ownership for worth." The judge looked at Ethan. He did not smile. He did not celebrate. He only lowered his head, because he finally understood the cost of the silence Claire had carried. For the first time in her life, Claire Bennett stood in a room with no title, no fortune, and no protection. Yet when the truth was entered into the record, she had never appeared more powerful. The judge remained silent for several seconds after the final recording ended. Then she turned toward the clerk. "Enter every document into evidence." The opposing attorney rose. "Your Honor, we request time to review the materials." "You will have time," the judge said. "But this child will not spend another night separated from her father because powerful people manipulated the record." Ethan's hands remained still on the table, though his breath caught when the judge looked directly at him. "Temporary custody is restored to Mr. Walker effective immediately. The court will also refer the corporate conduct disclosed today for independent investigation." Behind him, Marlene covered her mouth. Caleb lowered his head in relief. Vanessa closed her eyes, then nodded as though accepting a truth she should have recognized sooner. The courtroom doors opened, and Lily stepped inside beside the child advocate. "Daddy." Ethan stood, but for one heartbeat he could not move. Then Lily ran to him, and he knelt as she wrapped both arms around his neck. "You came back," she whispered. "I told you I would. Are we going home?" "Yes, Peanut. We are going home." She held him tighter while the courtroom, once filled with accusations, became quiet for a different reason. Some victories did not need applause. Some forms of justice sounded like a child finally breathing without fear. Claire remained near the witness stand, holding nothing now. No badge. No folder. No company waiting outside. Ethan looked at her across the room. The pain of her earlier testimony had not vanished, and forgiveness did not arrive simply because the truth had. Still, he understood what she had risked. "Thank you," he said. Claire shook her head. "You should never have needed me to prove you were a good father." "Maybe not." Ethan glanced at Lily. "But you told the truth when it cost you something." Richard Bennett left without speaking. Claire watched him go, then turned toward the tall windows where morning light had begun to break through the gray clouds. 6 months later, the Bennett board faced a federal investigation, the defective equipment was recalled, and the Patient Safety Trust funded repairs in hospitals across 3 states. Claire moved from her penthouse into a modest apartment near downtown Columbus and began helping employees who had been punished for reporting dangerous conditions. Ethan accepted a position as safety supervisor at a community hospital, where every maintenance warning required an independent review. Vanessa returned to Denver, but she called Lily every Sunday and stopped trying to replace Ethan with the life she believed money could provide. On a quiet Saturday afternoon, Ethan stood outside Claire's apartment carrying his old toolbox. When she opened the door, she looked surprised. "What is that?" "I heard your kitchen sink leaks." "Who told you?" Lily appeared from behind him, holding the cardboard house. "I did." Claire smiled and stepped aside. Ethan repaired the loose pipe while Lily sat at the kitchen table coloring. There were no marble floors, no private assistants, and no expensive view from the windows. Only the smell of tomato soup, the soft turning of a wrench, and 3 people learning that a home could begin before anyone was brave enough to name it. At dinner, Ethan set 2 plates on the table out of habit. Lily looked at them, opened the cabinet, and placed a 3rd plate beside Claire's chair. No one corrected her. Claire sat down slowly. "Are you sure?" she asked. Lily handed her a yellow crayon. "You still need a face in the picture." Claire looked at Ethan. He did not offer a promise too large for the moment. He only pulled out the chair. Sometimes grace entered quietly. Sometimes a second chance looked like an empty seat finally being filled. And if this story reminded you that dignity still matters, that truth is worth defending, and that kindness can rebuild what power tried to break, leave a comment, press like, and subscribe so more stories like this can find the people who need them. Outside, snow began falling over Columbus. Inside the small apartment, Lily added Claire's smile to the cardboard house. Ethan poured the soup. Claire bowed her head for one grateful second. No one said that she had saved them. No one said that they had saved her. The truth was gentler than that. None of them had made it home alone.